Hi everybody, I'm Joey. Well, today I'll be making a couple of large barn doors, and just before we crack into that, I'd just like to give a quick shout out to the podcast that I've just started with Robin Lewis from Robin Lewis Makes and Jordan Crawford from George's Workshop. As far as we know, this is the first Makers podcast in the Southern Hemisphere, and so really hopefully will relate to everyone who lives below the equator. I'm sure all of you living in the Northern Hemisphere will get something out of it too, but that's where we're headed with it. And so we are going live on YouTube on Thursday nights at 9 o'clock New Zealand time. That is GMT plus 13. And so go subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is the Shop Stool Podcast. So go check that out. Otherwise, hope you enjoy the video. So my client had a whole stack of New Zealand Rimu that had been sitting in a container drying for 5 or 6 years. As I started milling that up, it became pretty apparent very quickly that it was full of some really big timber-eating worms. I forget what the species was. But so that all had to be scrapped, and we ended up using some of this salu, which is Fijian Rimu. So it grows a lot quicker than the Rimu here. So it's very soft and it's a little unstable, but it's pretty good stuff. So once I had the pieces fairly well milled to size, I could start laying out the big bridle joints I'm going to use in the corners. So the fit right off the bandsaw was actually pretty good, but I just had to go back a few times with my shoulder plane and ease the tenon just to fit inside the saddle. And for the paneling, we just used 180 by 18 dressed solo, which is handy that this timber comes in a dressed form. And that is not me. That is Lou. He was doing some work experience with me for a week or so you'll see him a little bit more here. I was lucky here that my router bit was just touching the tabletop, so it just worked, but I did the other ones off the other side. Now I can cut all my paneling to the same length, hopefully, and add a tongue onto the ends of all of those panels. Then those tongues will ride in the grooves which I was just making in the stiles there. And then we could do a little dry fit and make sure things were how they should be. So I really wanted to get this door glued up on this particular day. The other one had already been done and I was here by myself, but I thought I'd try it anyway. Turned out to be quite a mission by myself, but I got there, and that's also why I'm using this epoxy, is because I can get such a long working time with it. Now, if you're wondering about the expansion issues, so these center panel boards are all dry fitted, and they're just pushed together. They're not super tight, but they are kind of tight. Now, in my experience, especially with this timber, is that it's going to shrink. So I'm making everything pretty firm, and you may be able to see later on that the panels did in fact start shrinking before we even had time to install the doors. So, and very unlikely that they will get any bigger than what they are now in a nice new warm house. And then I could have some fun just smoothing off the panels. The stuff planes so easily, it was pretty easy just to do too much. And then a groove on the bottom edge, and that will take the little guide that it gets screwed onto the floor. And then I could start laying out the hardware. It was fairly straightforward. So once we're on site, first thing was to do is get the track up on the wall, and then get the door up on the wall, and that actually went a lot smoother than I thought it would be. Then I just had to add the door stops on the ends, and then add the guide onto the floor. And then we were done. So that's a couple of non-rustic, nice looking barn doors. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. See you next time.